Hello, my friend. How are you doing? I hope that you're all doing good and that you are enjoying our live sessions. Welcome to the third science lecture video. Last time we were talking about reproduction in flowering plants, but before we continue talking about this, what are flowering plants, all plants, or all organisms made of? Organisms are made of tiny structures that we call cells, and scientists noticed that we have two different types of cells, a plant cell and an animal cell. These two types of cells share some common things together, but they are also different. Let's observe the diagram of a typical plant cell. What is A for? I'm gonna circle this. You will help me solving this question. What do we call this part? A cell membrane. Excellent. What about the outer layer of the cell? It's the cell wall. Perfect. So plant cells have two outer layers. They have the cell membrane that acts like a door and lets substances in and out of the cell, and the cell wall that is a thick layer that gives the cells their shape and support. What about C? What is this? The large organelle found in the plant cell. This organelle is used to store water and food. A vacuole. Excellent. Let's take a look on this organelle. It has small discs in it, and it usually has a green color. What is this? Chloroplasts. Excellent, dear ones. So, chloroplasts are found in plant cells only since they help plants in photosynthesis, the food-making process. Plants are almost the only organisms that go through photosynthesis. So, other organisms like people and animals don't need chloroplasts, so they don't have a chloroplast in their cells. What about E? What is this? The jelly-like, let's call it a playground or inside of the cell. It's the cytoplasm, that's right. Part F. This is the powerhouse of the cell. Here, the respiration process happens to provide the cell with ATP energy, the mitochondria, right? And we still have here the brain of the cell. It's the nucleus. So A for cell membrane, B cell wall, C vacuole, D chloroplasts, E cytoplasm, F mitochondria, G nucleus. What about the animal cell? Let's see. A is the control center of the cell. It is the brain of the cell. So this is the nucleus. That's right. B is the playground, the inside of the cell, the jelly-like substance where all organelles are found. It's the cytoplasm. Excellent. What do we call these organelles that help the plant storing water and food? Vacuoles. Wait. The outer layer of the animal cell. Cell membrane. Perfect. And this, the powerhouse of the cell where respiration happens, it's the mitochondria. So A for nucleus in here, B cytoplasm, C vacuoles, D cell membrane, E mitochondria. So as you can see, we have 5 common parts: cell membrane, vacuoles, cytoplasm, mitochondria, and nucleus. Plant cells have a cell wall, animal cells don't. Plant cells have chloroplasts, animal cells don't. So, we said the cell is the building block of all living things. Plants, animals, and people are made of cells. Some organisms are made of one single cell. They are unicellular organisms, and we call them microorganisms. Some others, like us, like animals, are made of an endless number of cells, and they are multicellular organisms, like animals, people, and plants. Some plants are flowering plants. They grow flowers. Some others are non-flowering plants and they do not grow flowers at all, like the spruce trees, mosses, fern plants, and pine trees, and also some others. These plants don't bloom. They do not make flowers. Flowering plants are plants that grow flower, like the orange trees, like all cacti, the cucumber plant, dandelions, and so much more. But what's the function of the flower in a flowering plant life? Actually, the flower has a very important job. The flower is the reproductive part of a flowering plant. It is the part that will help the plant make babies, make seeds. How does a flower do that? I think you know half of the answer. So before we answer this question, let's review some of the flower's part. What do we call the colored parts of a flower? In this case, what do we call the orange parts of the flower? We call them petals. Excellent. And the group of petals is the corolla. Amazing. What do we call these with the yellow heads? These are the anthers. In the right middle of the flower, you can see this organ. And what do you think is this? What is this? The stigma for sure. Here is a flower with all of its parts. Okay? Let's do this game together. Annotate the flower diagram. We will start with number 1. The purple part of the flower. The colored part of the flower is the petal. Excellent. 2. Did you say sepal? Great job, dear ones. What about the part number 3, which is the head of the male reproductive organ? Anther. Amazing job. What do we call the stalk or the line that holds the stamen, the anther? It's the filament. Number 5 now, the head of the female reproductive part. Stigma. Very good. The line that connects a stigma to the fat part of the pistil, this is number 6, is the style. Number 7, the fat part of the pistil, the belly of the flower, It's the ovary. Amazing. We still have the last one, number 8, the small eggs inside the ovary. These are the ovules. Good job. Well done. So, let's see some of the functions of these parts. The petals, or the corolla, which is the set of petals. The petals have bright colors. They have beautiful smells to attract pollinators, to attract insects to the plant. The sepals, the group of sepals is called the calyx. This part protects the flower when it's a bud, when it's so small and young. The pistil. The pistil or the carpel is the female. It is the girl with 3 parts, stigma-style ovary. The ovary hold the ovule inside. So the pistil is the female reproductive part. The stigma catches the pollen, and then these pollen grains go to the ovary, and when the pollen meet an ovule, we will have a seed. How is pollen produced? By the anther of the stamen. The male reproductive part, the anther, makes pollen. Okay, in flowering plants, an egg, which is the ovule found in the ovary like we saw in the previous slide, must meet a sperm, a male cell, to form a seed. How does this happen? Actually, this happens in 3 steps. First step is pollination. Pollen grains. Okay, so the second is fertilization, fructification. So during pollination, pollen grains move from the anther to the stigma. Pollen grains are formed in the anther, in the head of the male reproductive organ. This pollen must be moved to the stigma, to the head of the girl, to the head of the female reproductive part. This trip, this move, is called pollination. Pollination can happen by the help of the wind or some other animals like insects. These are called pollen helpers or pollinators. Second, the pollen grain holds on or lands on the stigma. When it lands on the stigma, it makes a pollen tube like a line. Okay? Then this pollen grain makes male eggs that we call sperms. It makes these small sperms. Each sperm will travel down through the pollen tube. Okay, this is the pollen tube, and it will move down to the ovary. When one sperm meets one ovule, we will have a seed. So let me repeat this. Pollen lands on stigma. There are yummy things on the stigma. Pollen grains can feed on them. The pollen grain will make a tube like a road down, and it will make sperms, male eggs. When a sperm moves down through the pollen tube and meets an ovule, we will have a seed. Last part, this doesn't always happen because this is for plants that grow fruits only. Sometimes the ovary grows into a fruit. This step is called fructification. It is when the ovary changes into a fruit. This happens after calyx, corolla, and stamens fall down, and the flower will be kept with an ovary that will enlarge in size to become the fruit with the seeds inside. Again, this happens in plants that grow fruits only. So, where do fruits come from? From flowers. After being pollinated, and after the when the ovules meet the pollen grains, and we will have and seeds are formed, we will have the ovary transforming into a fruit. Okay, so we talked about different parts of flowers, and we said that a flower shows a female reproductive part. I need to change the color. Let me use the blue one. So we have here almost, there are 6 stamens, 6 male reproductive organs, and we have this pistil in the middle, the girl standing in the middle of the flower. So this flower has both the male reproductive part, it has 6 stamens, and it has 1 pistil. So it shows both the female reproductive part, and also male reproductive parts. Since this flower shows both parts, we call it and we consider it as a perfect flower. Imperfect flowers are flowers that don't show both reproductive parts. Let's take a look on this flower. This one shows a pistil only with stigma-style ovary. There is no stamen in here. So, is the stamen found? No, I'm gonna cross it. So, no stamens in here. There is the pistil, the female reproductive organ. So, this is the female flower. This part, or this flower, shows 2 stamens. It shows 2 male reproductive parts. So it is a male flower because there is no pistil. The female reproductive organ isn't here. How does pollination happen? Here, pollen moves from the anther to the stigma, and here pollen moves from this anther to this stigma. Okay. What should my lovely, smart, amazing kids know? You can try this at home. Bring a flower from the garden and try to identify the different parts of the flower. You know now that the flower is made of 4 different parts. Petals. The group of petals is called corolla. Sepals. The group of sepals is called the calyx. We have the carpel or the pistil with the 3 parts, stigma, style, ovary. We have also the stamen with the anther and the filament. What is the job of each part? The petals, since they have bright colors, they have beautiful smell, they attract pollinators and insects. Sepals, to protect the flower as it's growing. The carpel or the pistil, it is the girl, the female part that holds the seeds inside. It has the ovules, which are the eggs needed to make seeds. The stamen, which is the male reproductive organ that produces and make pollen grains, also needed to make seeds. What are the basic phases? What are the steps of sexual reproduction? We consider it as sexual reproduction since we need both male and females to make the babies. So first step, pollination. We need to move the pollen from the anther to the stigma. Second, fertilization. Fertilization is when the pollen grains or the sperms meet the ovules, and fructification when the ovary becomes a fruit. Last question, you need to know what pollination means. You know now that pollination, it happens when the pollen grain moves from the anther to the stigma. Fertilization, when the sperm meets the egg or the ovule to form a seed. It is the process of combining the sperm with the egg to form a seed, or you can say the sperm with the ovule. Fructification is the process of growing fruits. It's when the ovary turns into a fruit. And we're done. I love you. If you still have any questions, please write them, and I'll be available to answer all of your questions and your comments during the Zoom meeting. See you then.